At the edge of the Thar Desert, there is a place where doors still stand open. Not broken, not forced, not abandoned in panic, just open. They hang there quietly, catching the light at certain hours of the day, creaking only when the wind passes through. No sign warns you to turn back. No barrier stops you from entering. The village does not look afraid of visitors. Stone houses line narrow streets, each one frozen in a moment that never finished. Cooking pots remain where hands once set them down. Thresholds frame rooms that were meant to be returned to. Footsteps echo longer than they should, because nothing interrupts them. What makes this place unsettling is not what can be seen, it is what is missing. More than 1,000 people once lived here. Families, elders, children. Entire lives unfolded inside these walls. Births, arguments, routines, small moments that never make it into history books. And yet, there is no evidence of departure, no trail leading outward, no memory of movement, no story of escape. They did not leave gradually. They did not leave under fire. They did not leave behind witnesses. They vanished. And the most disturbing detail is this: no one remembers seeing them go. Long before it became a ruin visited in silence, the village of Kuldhara was alive. In the early 19th century, this settlement existed quietly in what is now Rajasthan, India. The desert surrounding it was unforgiving, but the village itself was carefully designed to endure. Thick stone walls kept heat at bay. Narrow lanes guided wind through the settlement. Water systems, built with precision, made life possible where survival was never guaranteed. This was not a temporary refuge. It was permanence. Families followed routines shaped by generations. Days began before sunrise, when the air was still cool enough to work. Labor was repetitive, methodical, familiar. Children learned the same paths their parents had walked. Elders passed down knowledge that assumed one thing above all else: continuity. Nothing about Kuldhara suggested fragility. Nothing hinted at collapse. There were no accounts of famine sweeping through the area. No record of war pressing in from beyond the horizon. No sudden environmental catastrophe forcing people out. Life here was ordinary, and because of that, it should have continued. Villages like this do not simply disappear, they endure, which is why what happened next feels so deeply wrong. There is no single date marking the end of Kuldhara. No final entry. No last voice. At some point in the early 1800s, travelers approached the settlement and noticed something unusual. There was no smoke rising into the sky, no voices carried on the wind, no movement where daily life should have been impossible to miss. When they entered the village, they found it intact. Homes still stood. Walls were not breached. Roofs had not collapsed. Cooking areas showed signs of recent use. Personal belongings remained where they had always been. But the people were gone. Not a few, not many, all of them. No elders left behind, no sick, no children hiding in corners. An entire population had vanished. What makes this harder to accept is the silence surrounding it. Nearby villages reported nothing unusual. No large group passed through their lands. No sounds in the night. No cries carried on the air. No disruption that anyone remembered. In a desert, movement leaves traces. Footprints press into sand. Routes form. Belongings are dropped. Here, there were none. The village did not look abandoned. It looked paused, as if everyone stepped away at the same moment, believing they would return shortly. As if the idea of never coming back had not yet occurred to them. The first explanation offered was migration. Perhaps resources declined. Perhaps the people chose to leave together, quietly, to begin elsewhere. On the surface, it seemed reasonable, but the details refused to cooperate. Migration leaves evidence. Paths worn into the land, settlements downstream, oral histories passed down through families, names remembered, even if places are not. No neighboring communities reported absorbing a population this large. No descendants traced their origins back to Kuldhara. No stories survived of a shared journey away from the desert. More troubling still was what had been left behind. People fleeing hardship take what they can: tools, food, objects that matter. Here, almost nothing was taken, which raises a darker question. What would make more than 1,000 people abandon everything they owned, calmly, deliberately, without urgency, and without being seen? Local stories began to circulate. They spoke of pressure, of authority, of demands that grew heavier over time, pressing down on the village without leaving marks on its walls. According to these accounts, the villagers faced a choice that offered no future: submit completely or disappear. Some say the decision was made collectively, quietly, without resistance, without farewell. But even this explanation fractures under scrutiny. Why leave in silence? Why erase yourselves so completely? Why leave no written record, no warning, no plea for help? Another possibility suggests internal collapse, conflict, disease, a fracture that turned neighbors against one another. Yet there are no mass graves, no signs of violence, no historical records of plague sweeping through the area at that time. And then there is the explanation people hesitate to say out loud: that the village was cursed. Stories claim the residents placed a warning on the land itself, that no one who settled there would ever remain. Over the years, attempts to inhabit Kuldhara have failed. People leave, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly. Often without clear reason they are willing to explain. This theory explains the fear, but it explains nothing else. Why curse a place instead of defending it? Why vanish instead of fighting? Kuldhara still stands, not reclaimed by the desert, not rebuilt. It exists in a permanent state of pause. Archaeologists have studied it. Visitors walk its streets. Cameras capture its emptiness from every angle. But none of them answer the central question: why did everyone leave? There is no single moment to point to, no disaster, no final sound, no line where the story clearly ends, only a collective absence. The echo of Kuldhara is not something you hear. It is something you notice when nothing answers back. And if you find yourself drawn to stories like this, where history refuses to explain itself, then more of them are already waiting. You are always welcome to return.